Welcome back, you filthy exiles. So I thought I'd do a bit of a different sort of build guide today. And we managed to get lightning tendies up to about, I think this build is at 69 million DPS. And the reason for this is the new lightning tendrils of eccentricity. Basically, its stronger pulses have 500% more damage, and I think it's every sixth pulse at this stage now, and they always critical strike. So we don't even have to scale like crit chance. We just it scales 100% multi. And then even the normal damage hits for 9.3 million, and this is actually low end because if we get 21, we get 76 million DPS. This is not the most powerful version of this build, and if you want to see the most powerful version, then make sure you check out the next video that's going to come straight after this. And I've got this in both Mage Blood and non-Mage Blood variations, so I'll talk through both of those on screen with you. But so you can see what we're dealing with, let's run a Crimson Temple with 60% Delirious, and let's put on some other juiced up modifiers, and then I'll show you guys what this build looks like and what it can do. And by the way, this is a delve version of the build, so I've been running around at 600 depth and farming 500 horizontals, and this can go down to probably about 900 depth at this stage without any major issue, just for the sheer face mounting levels of damage this puts out. Okay, so let's give this a go. So this is a 30%, 60% juiced up delirious map, and I haven't got any scarabs in here, but yeah, I've got extra pack size on here. Let's give this a whack and I'll show you what this looks like. Alright, so we'll just go in and get the juice before everything starts trying to kill me. As you can see, it's extremely fast for a caster, I guess, because we use the new Frostblink skill in it, and we'll talk about this when we get into the actual build section. So just collect up what I can find. Blue juice is perfectly fine. There we go. That'll do for what we need it for. All right. So this has I think a Elder on it. Elder Guardian. As you can see, these maps are extremely rippy. And I didn't have my auras on. There we go. That'll make me a little tankier. So yeah, you can sort of walk into a 60% delirious map, forget to put your auras on, and still walk out the other side. Now, this build I've been rolling at 60%, sorry, not 60%, 600 depth and delve, and this thing is a Crystal King killer. Like, it absolutely destroys kings. And there'll be a video up of me and Shell Carnage duoing at like 500 depth for Crystal Kings as well, just for the lols. So we don't need to kill that. But as you can see, just straight up ridiculous levels of destruction. No, we might die to this guy, just depending on what damage phase he goes into. Or not. We'll just absolutely flog him. So now this version has Mage Blood, but I've also provided a version without Mage Blood, and we'll run that one next so you can see what it looks like as well. And yes, I will go back after I finish this to go and pick up all the loot. Is this not? Alright, so we'll go in and kill the boss, and then I'll also run through a non-Mageblood version so you can see what it looks like. So what we do is we put down our sigil, and then we pop down our stuff. We get our cursors up. Considering what this guy has, that's a lot of damage. And there we go. So, Durham. Trying to kill me. Alright, so that's a Mageblood version, right? So that's with Mageblood setup, which we'll talk about. I'm going to show you the non-Mageblood version next, and you can tell me if you like that more. Okay, so to switch this build back out of the Mageblood variation, pretty simple stuff. So we just got to pull our helm back. Take off our flask to put our old flask back on. We want that flask in there, and switch off the Mageblood. Right. So the only caveat here is my resistances aren't capped because I got 30% strength in here, and I didn't need this previously because I had the belt. So really I just need to re-roll the gloves if I wanted to, but I can run this without that. So this pretty much gets me, I'm a little slower by the looks, but this gets me to about 47 million DPS at level 21, 43 million DPS at level 20 on Lightning Tendies, so it's still very powerful. So anyway, let's run the same delirious 60% delirious map and see how it fares. Alright, so 60% delirious, got Atlas mods on. This is no Mageblood. So we'll go get some juice. So we can see the obvious difference with no Mageblood, but the damage is still there. Here's all the juice. Not going to get a very juicy map. Alright, not ideal, but alright. So this is 60% delirious with a little bit of juice. Is this good? I think so. Considering that dude hits like a truck and keeps jumping on me. Woo! Oh, he got me. Alright, try number 2. So degen pits are a problem for this build, Mageblood or no Mageblood. So we're just going to put this Omniphobia out of his misery. There we go. Yeah, that does nothing. Getting slapped around just a little bit. Alright. Take the Enslaver down. Alright. So that's without Mage Blood. Obviously, I needed to rebalance my mana out somewhere. The cost went up. But, yeah, anyway. Okay, so that's Lightning Tendies with and without Mage Blood. Let's talk about how you make this build work. And then, yeah, I'll give you both the POBs. And then there'll be a second video because I've gotten this up to even higher levels of damage at a more ridiculous rate. But anyway, let's talk about the build. Okay, so just for the purpose of the video and I guess achievability, I'll show you guys how to spec the non-Mage Blood version at this stage, and then basically it's just a couple of changes, and we'll go through those changes at the very end. But at this stage, our helm, same helm that we had in the Divine Ire build. By the way, this is the same tree as Divine Ire, exactly the same in every possible way, with a couple of things changed. So same helm, all resistances, reservation efficiency, crit strike for spells. Wand, I've got a best in socket wand. Now, I crafted this wand. I crafted two of these wands. They're really easy to craft. If you want to know how to make this wand, let me know in the description. I'll do a video on how to make another one. These wands are worth 15 div, give or take. I think if we, because I got like T1 rolls on everything right now with this. It doesn't even exist. These were like 15 to 20 div ones, but if you want to craft it, it only costs 5 div. It's a piece of cake to make. You just need the base. So yeah, we'll talk about that if you want. But basically, +1 lightning, lightning damage to spells, crit multiplier, spell damage, and cast speed. And then we use Harvest Juice to get the elemental damage per quality, and we run a perfect gem on it to get 28% quality. Nice and easy. In the ring, it's the Vivisect, same as the DI build, and then Replica Dragon's Flight, in this case, +3 to Lightning Tendrils gems. These are 40C, by the way. These are dirt cheap. So, yeah, I picked mine up for 40C. So, totally achievable, even on a lesser version of this build, still be really powerful. And then I have Incandescent Heart. Now, I have a Corrupted 2 modifier on mine. If you don't have that, then, you know, a normal one is fine. It will drop your damage by a little bit, but you'll still be in, like, the 20 to 25 to 30 million plus DPS category. I've got an Anathema. Anathema, obviously, I've got my Arcanus brand, which then casts Assassin's Mark, Conductivity, and Elemental Weakness. And then on my gloves, I've got lightning exposure gloves with focus on the gloves. So when I move, I proc focus, and this gives me 49% increased cast speed, which definitely beefs up the damage on this significantly. Belt is just resistances, maximum energy shield, and I've got regeneration energy shield while a rare or unique enemy's around. In the absence of a Mage Blood, this is all you need. Should probably turn those on. And then on my boots, I've got Ralikesh's Impatience. These are about, I think these are still like 2 div or something like that at the moment. one div, so they went down in price, so they're getting cheaper. Now, flasks on the non-Mageblood version, this is going to be Granite Flask, Basalt Flask, Diamond Flask, Quicksilver Flask, and Bottled Faith. You could sub out the Quicksilver for a Quartz Flask if you're down in Delve, or instead switch out the Diamond Flask for a Quartz Flask in Delve with cast speed on it. Now, if you're playing the Mageblood variant, then you're going to be switching out Mageblood, and you're going to be running Quicksilver with elemental resistances during effect. You're going to be running Basalt Flask with 53% increased armor and increased effect, Quartz Flask with 17% increased cast speed, and a Cinder Swallow if you're like me and you're a broke mofo and you could only afford 125 Dib Mageblood with 3 flasks. If you're on a 4th flask, then do whatever you want, Onslaught, whatever works for you. And then if you're playing the Mageblood variant of this build, then you basically want to run a Hubris Circlet with a implicit for cast speed and implicit for 6% of physical damage taken as chaos damage. Because this is chaos inoculation, that means a total of 16% of your physical damage is then being pooled against a stat that you're immortal against, that you cannot take damage from, being chaos. So yeah, and basically I crafted this helm as well. And to get the percentage mana reservation efficiency, you just use of loathing essences and then just roll it until you get the right stat. But that's it for the gearing on this build. Let's talk about the gem setups. Okay, irrespective of Mageblood or not, gem setups stay the same. So on the helm, custom damage taken, Inspiration, Molten Shell, and Feeble. In the one setup, you run Inspiration, Herald of Ash, faster attacks. Oh, that will be why. There we go. You run Reckoning, Herald of Ash, faster attacks. Then in your shield setup, Frostblink of Wintry Blast. So this is one of the new Frostblink gems. This is how I move so quickly, as you can see. And then you run Sigil of Power and Inspiration. This drops the cost, and so now I can cast my Sigil of Power. And then in the chest setup, so we want Lightning Tendrils of Eccentricity. This is one of the new Lightning Tendrils gems. If you can get a 21, get it. I couldn't find one, so the easiest way is buy a bunch of lower level gems, level them up, get them to level 20, hit them with 20%, and then just corrupt them, and you can run like 6 gems in the background. But yeah. And then Inspiration, increased critical damage, Empower, Infused Channeling, and Arcane Surge. Arcane Surge is an enormous boost to power because of the 20% cast speed you get off of it. So yeah, and you always proc it too. So, you know, you've got Arcane Surge coming off both this setup and off of your Arcane Adept setup too. So you always have Arcane Surge up. And then gloves, I've got Focus Glove, and then in the gloves I've got Arcanist Brand, Assassin's Mark, Conductivity, Elemental Weakness, and then in the boots I've got Zealotry, Enlightened Support, Tempest Shield, and Determination. Pretty simple stuff for gem setup, so let's talk about the tree. Okay, so tree-wise, pretty simple. So basically exactly the same tree as the Divine Ire build, no changes to the bloody tree, except I did level up, so I got Divine Wrath in this setup now. But basically you start, you take Practical Application, we'll take Annihilation, we come down, we grab Arcane Focus, we grab Mystic Bulwark, Prodigal Defense, we want Discord of Artisan, Presage, we come across, we grab our High Voltage node, and we also want to switch Lightning Mastery to 15% increased shock. And then we run Influence as well, down to Written in Blood, Doomcast. And then we obviously switch to Chaos Inoculation by the time you get to like Act 10 or you start early maps, only if you've got Aegis Aurora. If you don't have Aegis Aurora, don't switch to it yet. And then we'll talk about clusters last. We grab Disciple of the Forbidden, Charge Mastery, so we want 3% increased damage per endurance, frenzy, and power charge. Unnatural Calm, and then we grab the 100% increased energy shield from Equipped Helm. Then we grab Arcane Guarding with Shield Mastery. Now this is where I switched it out because we put a very different Watcher's Eye on this build. 1% to critical strike multiplier per 10 maximum energy shield on shield. And we have that as a multiple of 20% increased crit multi, which is big. Zealot's Oath, only once you've got Chaos Inoculation running. Then we grab Sovereignty, down to Faith and Steel with the 10% physical damage is taken as Chaos damage roll on it. And then in here we want to have a Thread of Hope, so we can grab an Easy Divine Shield and an Easy Glancing Blows. If you can't get that for whatever reason, go back to my part 1 video on Divine Ire. I'll put my part 1 series on this build as well in the description. To level this build, follow my incineration leveling guide. Once you get past that and you start to get some currency, you can then either choose Lightning Tendrils or you can switch to Divine Ire, take your pick. And also, sorry, you want Light of Divinity. And then we come up in our clusters, we grab Overshock, Widespread Destruction, Thunderstruck, and then we also grab Precise Focus and Rapid Infusion, and Rapid Infusion and Vital Focus with Nature's Patience in here. And then I also have a Corrupted Blood Gem with some crit multi on it as well. Now, I do have Vile Bastion, which gives me a huge amount of regeneration as far as my Forbidden Flesh and Forbidden Flame setups go. But in our second cluster, we grab Arcane Adept and Sap Psyche. And this means we have increased channeling speed, and we also have Arcane Surge. So we always have Arcane Surge up. And then we also get increased energy shield regeneration against cursed enemies, and increased mana regen and straight up spell damage. And then beyond that, in our specific gem setup, so we do have an Intuitive Leaf with Deep Thoughts, Presage, and Prodigal Perfection embedded within. And then we also have a Watcher's Eye here, which I did change out. And the reason why we no longer need to have this point selected for 1% chance to block attack damage is because I've got 6% chance to block attack damage while affected by Determination, and then Energy Shield on hit, which means that freed up a whole point, which freed up more opportunities for damage. So that's it for the tree. So this will be in the description in both this version. Well, the tree doesn't change. But it'll be a non-Mage Blood version and a Mage Blood version, just for good measure. Now, Ascendancy-wise, you want to grab Shaper of Storms first, Mastermind of Discord, Heart of Destruction, and Bastion of Elements. And then in the secondary Ascendancies, we grab Primalist, we grab Might of the Bear. I've got a charm here for Crit Strike's Cull. I've also got 4% extra mana as a maximum energy shield with 9% reservation. And then I've got Grant's Armor, which is not a good stat. Grant's additional armor, and you and nearby enemies have 18% elemental resistance. I'm probably going to switch this one out for something. I don't know what I'm going to do with that yet, but I'll figure that out. Anyway, that's it for the Ascendancies in the tree. So yeah, that's it for the build, basically. Yeah. Okay, so PoB check. Almost forgot to do this part of the video. So we have Bandit's Quest Kill All. We have Major God as Brine King, Tukahama as the Minor King, as the Minor God. And this is for the damage reduction and the regeneration when stationary. Then we have 5 seconds spent stationary, and the reason why we have that is because we generally cast and channel stationary, and we have Nature's Patience as well. And then, so right now the effective hit pool looks weird, and the reason being is we have to disable the EHP gain on block or suppress, but realistically EHP is quite high. We have all power charges, we have focus, we don't have onslaught in this version of the build, but if you did have onslaught in here, pardon me, yeah, your damage would go up by a fair bit. So focus comes from our gloves, Arcane Surge comes from the Arcane Surge in the setup itself. We do have an active flask, we have Consecrated Ground because we run Bottled Faith, which is this here, so we have Consecrated Ground from that. Channeling, yes, we channel, that's how we cast. 10 seconds I've got, but it doesn't matter. You could mark it down to 5 seconds. The only time it drops is anything less than 5 seconds. And then nothing else selected here. Convergence is an on-damage ability for the Elementalist to bosses. So gain Convergence when you hit a unique enemy. So yep, that's going to be up. Then we have you cursed an enemy recently? This just increases our regeneration, and this is linked to our cluster setup here for Sap Psyche. And then beyond that, we have Infusion. Actually, it's 51 million DPS. Sorry, I goofed. It's way stronger than I thought it was. So yeah, we have Infusion active. Now, we do have 4 stages of Sigil of Power. If we had 0 stages, still 43 million. Come at me. If you think that's weak, then you're crazy. And then basically no other settings here. Enemies are ignited because we have Herald of Ash in the build as well. Enemies are shocked, and we do 15% increased shock based on this node here, with the base being 50%. Now, you won't always achieve maximum shock on bosses, even if you got like 35% shock. Again, 43 million DPS is a lot of DPS. 45% shock is 46%. 55% is 49 million. And then 65% shock, which is our cap shock. That is our maximum level of damage. We do lightning exposure because we have it built into our gloves. So in the implicit, so we have 11%, negative 11% lightning resistance. We apply exposure, and then that synergizes with Mastermind of Discord. Sorry, a lot of words getting thrown out at this one, which is here. So we get increased exposure as well based on our ascendancy. Then we have Unnerve as well. This comes from our gloves. Oh, where are they? Gloves. Unnerve. 15% chance to unnerve enemies for 4 seconds on hit. And then we have Consecrated Ground because we have a Bottle of Faith. And this is Guardian Pinnacle damage. And if you wanted Uber Pinnacle damage, 15.5 mil. So it's pretty competent at taking... well, it can damage Ubers. Now, this build, can it do Ubers? I wouldn't recommend it. It's not made for Ubers, made for Delve. And in particular, this can run 500 Delve. Now, as far as the tree goes, the configurations for Mageblood, let's talk about that next. Okay, Mageblood configurations. Basically all the same. No changes, except slap a Mageblood on it. That's all there is to it. Mageblood is just powerful. The other thing we get on the Mageblood setup is we have Onslaught, and that's coming from our Cinder Swallow Flask, which we don't have on the previous setup. And you're not really worried about crit. So yeah, on this setup, you've got Cinder Swallow, that's going to ramp your damage again. And then it's going to give you access to Onslaught, which ramps your damage again. Or it doesn't really ramp your damage because it just does ridiculous levels of damage. Now, again, if your shock is lower, if it's at like 43%, 61 million, 35%, sorry guys, it's only going to be 58.6 million. Now, the other thing to bear in mind with this is also this has a strong and a weak pulse. Now, the strong pulse hits enough that you don't notice it not hitting, but the normal pulse still hits for 9.3 million DPS. So, still super powerful, and it gets to 13.39 max cap cast per second as well. With 38,000 armor, max block, we got some suppression into the build, tons of regeneration as well. And actually, this is not correct in here because Valor Discipline hasn't been ticked off. So, as 6.5 million effective hit pool is distorted, it's actually 189,000 if you take away the regeneration. So, it's quite tanky and perfect for Delve. This one I was running around 600 depth and smashing kings and all sorts of stuff with. And it's super fast in maps, as you can see. But yeah, it's basically a setup. But we can make this stronger. Alright, so yeah, as noted, I'll have everything in the description below. If you've been watching the streams, it's a ridiculous build. It's just complete, the skill is just busted. It's straight up busted. Anyway, I'll see you guys later. Don't forget to like and sub to the channel. Don't forget to go and follow the Twitch. And have a good one.